economy anyway. And of course, the economy, I know that always when the economy is down, and the last guy I talked to, I think, confirmed a lot for me. I really do believe that many members of the left just don't want a better economy because we live too large and beyond our means, and we eat too much, et cetera, et cetera. So ignoring that, the idea of bringing back the economy always suggests that perhaps, well, we need another stimulus package. I don't believe they work, but folks on the left seem to think they're a good idea. We got another one coming?
It looks like it.
Oh,
it looks like QE3. Remember, it was, a year ago that Ben Bernanke was saying we were not going to have QE3. We were not going to have another round of quantitative easing. That's what they call it. That essentially means the Federal Reserve starts printing more money and just putting it out into the market in order to try to, control interest rates.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to stabilize things. And we've had 2 rounds of this already. Enormous amounts of money being printed. It's had no net effect whatsoever. And remember, about 6 months ago, you were hearing a lot of people on the left saying, well, the problem was stimulus wasn't big enough. That was the reason they said it didn't work. So now, of course, we're looking at this 3rd round, and the idea is to try to get through the election without, the economy getting any worse.
Well, that's
the problem is it doesn't fix anything.
But you see, now, obviously it doesn't fix anything, at least for most people who have studied it in the past, but I read the other day that in an election year, the Fed is always less likely to do anything. They don't want to be perceived as catering to or trying to help out the administration in power. And in fact, after they met the other day, I believe it was earlier this week, they said, probably no QE3. Has it changed?
Well, I would say that who knows what the
yeah.
I mean, I guess you kind of stumped me with that, because is Bernanke trying to help the administration?
Well, if you believe
I just know that there seems to be this attitude that, well, first of all, let's be clear about this. There is a thought process as if there's only one school of economic thought here. And that seems to be that the only type of thought we have is this Keynesian philosophy, that when the market is crashing, government has to step in and stabilize the market in order to fix the problems with it. That seems to be the idea. Of course, there is this whole other school of thought called Austrian economics that says you don't intervene, let the market correct itself, because until you do, you're just putting these temporary bubbles, and you're continuing to put bubbles into the market. And that's what we've seen happen, QE1 and QE2. In fact, we've seen it happen over and over and over since the Great Depression. The government comes in and tries to fix the market, and they can't fix the market. It's what happened with the housing market. It's why the housing market still hasn't recovered.
When they tinker with it, they mess up the natural order of things. I mean, it's as if they're in denial about the state of mankind, free of economic or of government interference. We managed to do fine by deciding which goods and services we want. Banks do fine when they evaluate the creditworthiness of individuals and decide where good loan risks are and weeding out the bad risks. I mean, that's the way societies work. When you mess with that fine analysis, when you mess with our individual ability to do that and impose on a populace, lower lending standards or looser credit, we all run amok, end up getting a lot of credit we can't afford, and the thing pops eventually.
Well, I want you to think about something. A lot of your listeners may not know the name of Friedrich von Hayek. Hayek was one of the strongest advocates of Austrian economics at the same time, really around the time of the Great Depression, at the same time that Keynes was, really the one pushing for government intervention. And so both of them had this take on the Great Depression. But Hayek's belief was this, that if the market is going through a time where interest rates, are low, and there's a lot of credit out there, and lots of people are buying homes, lots of businesses are doing well, everything is going well, that is actually the bubble. That in reality, you're not always in this perpetual state of growth. The problem is that the Keynesian belief is that you're always in growth, and then as soon as growth halts or stops, then something must come along to stimulate growth and get it started again.
Gotcha.
Now think about this. When you're talking about the housing market, look at how housing over the past 30 or 40 years in this country, real estate continued to go up, and everybody thought it would always continue to go up. The cost of housing will always go up, the value of housing. It's this great investment. Eventually, that bubble burst. We saw how it burst. There are a number of reasons why it burst, but the main reason it burst was because government got involved and started saying everyone must own a home. Banks must lend to people. You have to get everybody into these houses. Who cares if these mortgages are risky? We'll take care of them. We'll back them. And then the whole thing fell apart. And now we're sitting here saying, well, when's the housing market going to come back? The real question is not, is it going to come back to the point that it was at? The question is, was that an artificial bubble that housing never should have been in the first place?
I've made that argument countless times. I mean, it had to have been. There's no way you're getting a 20-30% increase in your value of your house year after year. I mean, look at the historic trends before you got to the credit, the lax credit standards, and you can see that. Ben, can you stay around? Because I understand the Chicago police don't know the Constitution, and of course, more shenanigans at the Ron Paul fans, stick around. Apparently, you're going to get arrested in Louisiana. Ben, stick around. We'll be with you in a second. 840 at 55 KRCD Talk Station. Brian Thomas with Fox 19's Ben Swan doing a little reality check here as we do every Tuesday morning at 8:30. We're on the second segment of it. Ben, you pick Chicago police not knowing the Constitution or Ron Paul supporters being arrested. We're going to talk about both of these. You can do in the order you choose.
Yeah, let's talk about the Chicago deal. I mean, it's not really that unusual for police to do this, but it was caught on video, and I think it just kind of speaks to the bigger issue of, you know, what powers do police have in our current society? And it's a scene, it's pretty typical media scene. You got the media guys outside of a hospital. It's not a crime scene. There's nothing big going on here. There's no immediate danger to the public. They're standing on a sidewalk across the street. But this cop is telling a couple of reporters, a couple of photographers that they have to move. They have to get out of there. He wants them gone. He wants them moved to a different location. And they're explaining to him that based on where they're at, you know, they have every legal right to stand where they're standing, every legal right to take pictures of this building. There's no immediate danger to anyone. And the cop's arguing with them. And at one point in this video, which we're going to play the video, but he says to them, you know, I don't care about free speech. He says, your free speech rights can be suspended at any time if I say so.
What? Oh, he's the guy in charge of constitutional rights.
And not only that, but after a short time of back and forth, he goes ahead and arrests two of these guys. There's a photographer who gets arrested, a reporter who gets arrested. You know, they're thrown in the back of a squad car, they're taken away. And of course, no charges are actually filed.
Of course not.
Once they get down to their precinct, they're let go, you know, and allowed to leave. But according to the National Press Photographers Association, the NPPA, there have been 70 of these kinds of situations in the last year where police officers have said that they had the right to essentially make up the rules wherever they are.
Isn't that it's a civil rights violation? Can't the reporters, the journalists that were there filming, pursue them for violation of civil rights?
They absolutely can, and they probably should.
Yeah, they should.
In fact, the NPPA probably will separately do that as an organization. That's kind of part of what they do. But I think that there's a bigger issue there, and that is that, you know, regardless of those 70 instances, there are 70 that are reported, but how many times does it go on unreported? I know that at the last station I was at back in Texas, we had this situation happen constantly. And here in, you know, in Cincinnati, I haven't heard of it happening here since I've been here. But, you know, where I was before, it constantly happens. And you have these police officers who, they don't themselves, I think, understand the Constitution in many of those cases. And so they will, you know, step up and say, well, you can't do this and you can't do this and you don't have the right to videotape this. And this is a lawful order that I'm giving you. There's almost like this superseding power that they believe they have by issuing what they call a lawful order, even if the lawful order is actually unlawful.
Well, that's absolutely frightening, and I guess if you get picked up and arrested, I mean, aren't you supposed to be charged with something? You know, you have a basis for arresting someone, and it seems to me you'd be entitled to know under what law or what statute or what particular regulation you're being picked up on.
Well, that seems to be kind of the other issue here. You seem to see a lot of these situations nowadays where people get arrested and then released.
Right.
And it's almost like a deterrent. Like, I'm gonna make things difficult for you. I'll put you in cuffs. I'll put you in the back of the squad car. I'll take you down to a precinct. We won't actually file charges because now that's a whole other legal step.
Exactly.
But we can certainly cause all this inconvenience and difficulty for you.
All right, real quick, Ben, and I hate to give it the shortest amount of time, but we are short. Ron Paul delegates arrested in Louisiana. More convention shenanigans. What's up?
You know, look, at the end of the day, look, how can anyone make the case that Mitt Romney is not going to be the nominee, right? It's going to be very difficult to make that case. So what's the point of all of this? Down in Louisiana, they held their state convention. And at the state convention, the Louisiana GOP is breaking all their own rules. In fact, at one point, they sent out the night before the convention, they sent out a new set of rules saying, we're not going to follow Robert's Rules of Order. These are the new rules. So when they get into the convention, the people on the floor begin to try to nominate a chairman for that particular state convention. And the chair, who's supposed to be the temporary one, won't listen to them. And this is on video. So you've got a delegate who stands up. You have a guy who is nominated from the floor. He's good on. He stands up. Police are called in. One of these guys, who we're going to talk to, who was the nominated chairman, has an artificial hip. Cops throw him on the ground, dislocate his hip.
Oh, my God.
Drag him out of the building. The other guy gets dragged out of the building, comes back later on with 3 broken fingers. But here's what's really incredible. You see the crowd sitting there in the floor of this convention hall where they're at. And they, from the floor, because the temporary chair will not stop the meeting, you hear them nominate someone, you hear them second it, you hear them move to put this guy, a new chairman in, and then everyone in the room, Brian, picks up their chairs, it physically turns around, sets them down, and now faces the back of the room where they have to hold their own meeting. And so you see this kind of crazy scene going on. Now, the question I started with is, how can you make the case that Romney's not going to be the nominee? It's almost impossible to make that case. So in that case, in all these different states, why is the Republican Party self-destructing?
I don't know.
By going through this process.
I don't know. You know what it is? I'm guessing, Ben, and we'll have to leave it on my opinion on this. It's like whining, crying toddlers who are not getting their way. They see their power being eroded by folks who are into liberty and free markets and fiscal responsibility, and they're against crony capitalism, and the crony capitalists are the ones that are whining and causing this kind of nonsense. Ben, we'll be watching you on Fox 19, of course, your reality check. Great segment, and I appreciate you coming on every Tuesday to alert us to stuff like this.
We'll talk to you next week, man.
Looking forward to it, man. 846-55 KRCD Talk.